Hi guys, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm using the Cake by the Ocean kit from the Scraptastic Cake Club, which is of course the kit for the month of May. It features all of these beautiful fancy free papers and embellishments along with an assortment of other things. So let's get started. This is actually a layout that I started after I had set out that layout that you just saw there that I took away. That's Cherish, and it's already on my YouTube channel as a process video. And I got to a point with that one where it became evident to me that I wasn't going to get to play with layers the way that I really wanted to. So I set that one aside and grabbed a piece of white cardstock, and I am just spreading around. I want to spread as thin a layer as possible here because of gesso. This is gesso. Because I want to get started. I've already been scrapbooking for a little while and didn't get a chance to play with mixed media or layers yet, so I want to get moving. So a thin layer dries really quickly, and that's what I'm looking for here. I also have a friend with me over here in my scrap room. Stephanie Hart was with me, and so I just wanted to kind of get a layout done while she was here. At least one of them finished while she was here. So I set the other one aside, and the reason I'm doing mixed media on this one, I'm just going to go clean my craft mat and that little palette knife as well. So I went up to the bathroom and came back, and here I am. I wanted to do mixed media on this one because I was inspired by those Pink Fresh Studio stickers that came in the kit. There they are, right there. And I love those stickers so much, and I thought, wouldn't that idea make a great background? So I gessoed my paper because I'm planning to use a lot of water on this background. And I just find that water on paper tends to lead to a big mushy mess, unless if you use some gesso, because gesso is just a finishing, it's kind of a priming product that allows mixed media to pool on the surface of your paper instead of being absorbed into it. So what I did there was I misted my paper with water, and then I sprinkled a little bit. These are Ken Oliver color bursts. Are beautiful pigment, powdered pigments that you add water to in any number of different ways. And now I am using red. It's called alizarin red, I think is how you pronounce it. I could be wrong there. But I knew as I was using it that I'd be sopping up a lot of it and that it would leave a pink by the time I was finished absorbing most of the pigment off of this layout, that it would be pink and not red. I do struggle with using red and not having it look too much like blood, and so you see there, that looks a lot like blood. But that's okay, I'm not too worried. As you see, once I take a paper towel, it does mute quite a lot into a much lighter color, and the reason it does that is that it's white underneath, and so more of the white shows through when you sop up the extra pigment with your paper towel. And so you see what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of like drying it up and then reactivating it, and then drying it up and reactivating it. I just want to get an interesting mottled look on the base of this paper. And this is what I love about the powder as opposed to other kinds of watercolors. I use watercolor crayons, and I use watercolor pan paints, and I have mists that I use as a watercolor sometimes. And what I really like about these pigments is that because you sprinkle them, see how far reaching they are? Like little tiny pieces of it that you don't even see are on the paper, and they leave these amazing little dots that then if you later put water on them by mistake or on purpose, they reactivate and just make these wonderful, beautiful little patterns. And I really love the little dark specks that are left where the color was not activated, and it just kind of stays. See how I'm wetting this part that looked like it had nothing on it, and once I wet it, it suddenly awakens with color. It's absolutely gorgeous. The little spots on the corners where I didn't end up adding water, when I go back and add them, it just activates that watercolor and makes it look so beautiful. So here's my background, and I'm really liking it because I added the watercolor pigment twice. I've got sort of a nice, interesting pattern that was created there. Now, the one downside about using this as your watercolor is, oh, here I am tempting fate. I already made a mistake on my other layout related to this, so I'm being careful here, but I just wanted a little pool of green that I could just drip, like the drips on the stickers are, the green is just dripped. It's not modeled on the background. And so what I was saying that is the downside about using the Ken Oliver pigment powders is that whenever you put more water on your layout, those are reactivated. And so it's a little bit more tricky to layer different colors of watercolor on top of one another. So for example, here I just dropped that green in droplets all over the place, and that didn't cause me any trouble. But if I had tried to put more of a wash that was in the green on top of that pink, when I added the water to the green or added the liquid green onto my layout, whichever way I did it, I would also reactivate the pink, and the pink and the green would end up mixing together instead of staying separate layouts. So that is one thing that you do have to be careful of when you're using those pigments in particular. I find that the Ken Oliver ones do reactivate. Even after they've been dried, they will reactivate a little bit or a lot, depending on, I don't have a ton of experience, but I know they do activate at least a little bit after they've been wet. I haven't done a whole lot of research. Oh, there. So Stephanie was laughing at me because there was a big puff of yellow because I put a little bit too much there. So I was kind of covered by a little yellow cloud of powder for a minute there. This looks green, but it's actually not. It's yellow. Part of it is that my brush is stained, and it just looks darker than it is on my color mat as well. But you can see from the paper towel that it's quite a light yellow color. So again, I added the yellow because the stickers had yellow splatters on them. There were fewer yellow than green splatters and fewer green than pink. So I wanted my background to have mostly pink with a couple of green splatters and a couple of yellow splatters. And I think this background is absolutely gorgeous. I love how interesting it is. I especially love that right-hand side of the paper right now, that edge, where there's all these little splots of pink where the pink pigment didn't mix and create a mottled look, but instead just kind of dried in little dots. I really like how that's mixed in with the mottled look. I just think it looks really cool. I couldn't have tried, and there's what I posted on Instagram, my kind of inspiration piece, and then the background paper. And so this striped glassine bag came in the kit. It had some goodies inside of it. And so I'm going to use that on this layout, although most of it is going to end up being covered. I wanted to use my most delicate doily that I have. I'm almost out of these. I don't remember where I got them. I think they're just cake decorating doilies from maybe Michael's or something. And so what I love about these glassine bags is that they add not only a little bit of interest pattern-wise to your layouts, but they also add texture and a little bit of lift. And I'm going to fold this in such a way that it adds some lift more than anything else. I'm adding lift with the glassine bag. And so now I'm just looking through the pattern paper that came in the kit, and I'm trying to find some papers that will make some nice layers. So this is the second layout that I'm scrapbooking from Sophia's prom. The first one, as you saw, I was just putting aside while I did this one. The first one is very clean and simple. There I am folding that bag so that it provides just a little bit. And the pattern is going to show as well, but it's mostly lifting the photo up off of the other layers, almost like a little springboard. And then I'm just gluing some of those layers together. Those papers are from the Fancy Free collection from Pink Paisley. And so is this one. And I really like the pattern on this one, so I want more of this one to show. The other ones just have tiny little edges showing, and I'm actually going to turn it so that you see even more of it. I really like the green on the back side of that. It really picks up on the green in the photo. And so this layout, as opposed to the other one that had more of just less papers on it, this one I really felt like layering, so I wanted to get some nice beautiful papers layered together for this one. So I don't want too much of that green paper to show, but you see how when I shifted that paper so that it was just 90 degrees on the other, on kind of like the other way, like a lengthwise rectangle instead of a tall rectangle, you just see more of that pattern, and it's just so pretty. I usually don't mind covering up pattern papers, but this one I really wanted to show a little bit more than what the other papers are showing. I like how those layers look. And here's that inspiration piece. So I'm thinking about which of those phrases I might want to use on this layout. I'm not quite ready to place them yet, but I'm still thinking about, pardon me, about what the phrases say so that I can incorporate them as I'm designing. So I think I thought about using the turquoise or teal titles, but I've decided to use silver for this layout as well. I used silver for the other one, not because I wanted them to match or coordinate per se, but just because I think that it gives a really nice subtle touch. It's less bold. I think that teal titles would have made this layout look completely different. It's also slightly different than the greens that I'm using in the layout, and so I don't want to introduce a whole other color, and so although there is turquoise in the splatters, I don't know. I wasn't liking how the turquoise was looking, so I went with the silver. I'm going to call this So Happy because that's one of the titles that was there. It's one of those layouts that doesn't need a particularly meaningful title. It's basically just look at how beautiful Sophia was on her prom day. I don't really have a whole lot of a story to tell about this one, or the other one for that matter. And so I just used my waxed paper to place out my title, to play around with where I might want to put it. And I'm getting ready to start embellishing. I want to add more to this, more than just these pattern papers. I also want to add some embellishments. So I'm just getting my embellishments that came in the kit, and I'm keeping them in these, I have a word for this. It's a valet travel tray, I think is what it's called. Somebody from YouTube told me that, so thank you. I've been calling them my pinched dishes, which sounds kind of weird. So valet tray sounds way fancier. Yeah, so I'm just looking through that. Those are the ones in that particular valet tray are exclusive to the Scraptastic kit. And so I'm cutting up some of the pieces to move them around the layout. And then I thought, just for a little bit of interest, I'd put some of these geometric shapes, the diamond shapes that came in the kit. They're cut out of vellum. And I thought they might make an interesting, unusual layer for me. I don't usually use those kinds of shapes in my layers, the kind of lots of pointy edges on them, and I really like how they look. So I especially like how these ones look up here with the star pointing, kind of poking out. I'm just using my Zig 2-way glue pen to adhere these, and that just gives me a lot of control. I can put a tiny little bit of glue in just the right spot and then tuck it under, and it holds its place. I'm not being too particular about how I layer these together. I'm just sticking them in so that they're all showing. And then at the last minute, I decided to put the other half of that star right behind them so that it's sort of repeated. The star and those geometric shapes are both repeated on each side. That gives some continuity to the layout. And now I have the happy happy down on one side, so I felt like I wanted to put another word-based die cut over here. So memories is going to stick right there. And now I'm using a lot of glue because you have to on a mixed media background, because that gesso makes everything a little slippery. So I just used 3 or 4 pieces, like lines of that tape runner, as opposed to normally I might just use 1 or 2. Then I'm using my Stampin' Up! Dimensionals to add some lift between the layers. That just adds some really beautiful shadow and dimension and interest, and draws attention to the fact that there are lots of pretty papers layered together there. And then I'm placing the so that it's mostly on that one layer. And then the happy, this is one of the great things about foam letters, is that they're so flexible. So I can have that little ascending part of the H the loopy part is up on a layer, and then the rest of the H and all the rest of the word happy is all on the bottom layer, and it works because of the flexibility of foam stickers. Yay for foam stickers. And so it needed a little something else. I tend to, when I have a heavily layered layout and when I have a layout that uses a real mixed media background, I tend to go easy on the amount of scattered embellishments that I use. Like I'll limit most of my embellishments to the layers. And so, I have the star and those geometric shapes and the doily and the words, and that's really about all the layering that I feel like I want to do on this. But I have to put some of these stickers on because they're the whole inspiration for the whole layout. So I've picked some phrases, and at first I had them way too far over. I don't like them there. It was throwing the layout off a little bit. So I just moved them over a little bit more. I didn't want it to have too much of a diagonal look. I mean, a diagonal is a fine design principle, but I just wanted it to be a little bit more organic than that. So because I use mixed media and because my dehumidifier is broken in my scrap room, so everything is kind of swollen and puffy with water because it's summer here and Nova Scotia is very, very close to the ocean. I live about 20 minutes away from the ocean. Everything gets kind of curled when I don't run my dehumidifier, and this mixed media layout or background is especially prone to curling. So I just used a piece of chipboard to keep everything flat. I'm writing my journaling now with a super fine point pen, and it says Sophia was so excited to be able to attend prom. She had bought her dress way back in November and has been waiting so long to wear it. She looked stunning and had the time of her life. So many dreams come true for her this year. Prom is a very North American experience from what I hear. At least it's not really a thing in Spain. And so she was very, very excited at the idea of going to prom. She's not graduating, but all the international students are invited to attend prom. I think because it's recognized that this is sort of their opportunity, whether they're in grade 12 or not, to attend prom. A lot of the internationals who are going back to their home country for grade 12 just won't get a chance to do prom. So here are the close-ups of this layout. I had a really fun time layering all of these papers together, and I think that these two layouts, if you watch the one right before this, which was called Cherish, and this one, is sort of two completely different ways to scrapbook a similar picture. They're both prom pictures. They both have, bright green and pops of color, and two completely different styles of scrapbooking. You don't have to limit yourself to one style. You can feel free to expand and experiment with different approaches and ways, and even with the same pictures you could take it in different directions. So I hope that you guys have a really great scrappy week, and I'll see you next time.